The maintenance tunnels of Starbase Zenith hummed with the steady pulse of quantum reactors, a sound that Sarah Chen had learned to tune out months ago. What she couldn't ignore, however, was the peculiar resonance emanating from Junction 47, a dissonant note in the station's usual symphony of machinery. "Chen, status report," crackled her supervisor's voice through the comm unit. The translator rendered Overseer Strick's multiple-toned Araxian speech into flat standard English, but couldn't mask the impatience in their voice. "Something's wrong with this configuration," Sarah replied, her eyes fixed on the crystalline matrix before her. The alien technology pulsed with an unhealthy violet light instead of its usual azure glow. "The energy patterns are different." "Different how?" Strick demanded. "Human maintenance workers are not authorized to make diagnostic assessments. Wait for a certified Araxian technician." Sarah bit her lip, fighting the urge to argue. After 6 months on Zenith, she knew the drill. Humans were tolerated as basic maintenance staff only because they worked cheaper than most species. Real engineering work was reserved for the Araxians, whose crystalline-based technology was considered too advanced for primitive races to comprehend. But the longer she stared at the matrix, the more certain she became that something was fundamentally wrong. The energy wasn't flowing properly through the crystal lattice. She could almost see the disruption, like a snag in fabric. "Overseer, I really think," she began, but the comm crackled with static and went dead. Sarah's heart rate quickened. Communication blackouts didn't just happen on Zenith. The station's quantum entanglement network was supposedly infallible. She glanced at her handheld diagnostic tool, a simple device humans were permitted to use, but its screen was dark. The violet pulse of the matrix grew stronger, casting eerie shadows in the narrow maintenance tunnel. Sarah knew she should follow protocol. Seal off the junction, place a warning beacon, and wait for qualified personnel. That's what 6 months of training had drilled into her. Instead, she reached toward the crystal matrix. The moment her fingers touched the smooth alien surface, something extraordinary happened. The violet light surged, but rather than burning her as she'd feared, it felt cool, almost liquid. And suddenly, she could see it, not with her eyes, but with some other sense she'd never known she possessed. The energy flow within the crystal matrix spread out before her consciousness like a three-dimensional blueprint. The problem was obvious now. A microfracture in one of the secondary nodes was causing energy to leak into a recursive loop, building up dangerous levels of potential. If left unchecked, it would cascade through the entire power distribution network. Without conscious thought, Sarah's fingers moved across the crystal face, tracing patterns she somehow knew would redirect the energy flow. The violet light followed her touch, shifting and realigning. She could feel the matrix responding, its resonance changing pitch until it harmonized with the station's background hum. The azure glow returned, steady and strong. Sarah stepped back, her hands trembling. What had just happened? How had she known what to do? "Chen." Trick's voice burst from the comm, startling her. "We registered a power fluctuation in your sector. What's your status?" She stared at her hands, then at the now properly functioning matrix. "Everything's fine," she managed. "Must have been a temporary glitch. Remain in position. A technical team is en route to investigate." Sarah's mind raced. She had violated at least 6 protocols by interfacing directly with the crystal matrix. Worse, she had somehow manipulated Araxian technology in ways that should have been impossible for a human. They would want to know how. They would want to study her. The maintenance tunnel suddenly felt very small. Heavy footsteps echoed from both directions, the technical team approaching. Sarah looked left, then right, her heart pounding. She could run, try to reach the human quarters before they caught her, but that would only delay the inevitable and mark her as guilty. Taking a deep breath, she straightened her shoulders. Whatever had happened here, whatever this new ability meant, running wouldn't solve anything. She had to face it. The first Araxian rounded the corner, their crystalline exoskeleton catching the matrix's light. Chief Engineer Arxtanos. the station's highest-ranking technical officer. Sarah had never seen them in person before. Human maintenance worker Chen, Arxtanos said, their translator rendering their voice in crisp tones. Our sensors detected an unauthorized interface with critical station systems, followed by unusual energy patterns. They studied her with compound eyes that shifted color like oil on water. Explain. Sarah looked at the matrix, then back at the chief engineer. The truth would sound insane, but it was all she had. Sir, she said, keeping her voice steady, I think we need to revise our understanding of human capabilities when it comes to crystal tech. The maintenance tunnel fell silent except for the healthy hum of the matrix, a hum she had somehow known how to restore. As more Araxian technicians arrived, their crystalline forms crowding the narrow space, Sarah realized her life on Zenith would never be the same. She just hoped she'd be allowed to keep it. The observation chamber's walls rippled with iridescent patterns as a dozen Araxian scientists monitored Sarah through their crystalline sensors. She'd spent the last 6 hours here, subjected to scan after scan while trying to explain something she barely understood herself. Again, instructed Dr. Ingevera, the station's lead researcher. Touch the test matrix. Sarah suppressed a sigh and reached for the small crystal array floating in the center of the chamber. As before, the moment her fingers made contact, she felt that strange sense of connection, like diving into a digital ocean where energy flows became visible currents. Impossible, muttered one of the scientists, their crystalline appendages clicking rapidly across their instruments. The human's neural patterns are synchronizing with the matrix frequencies. This defies all known biological limitations of their species. Not impossible, Sarah said, her eyes closed as she traced the energy paths. Just unexpected. There's a difference. A sharp tone from Dr. Ingevera silenced any response. You will speak when instructed, maintenance worker. The formal reminder of her status might have stunned more if Sarah wasn't so fascinated by what she was discovering. Each time she connected with the crystal technology, she understood more. It wasn't just about seeing the energy flows anymore. She was beginning to grasp the underlying principles, the quantum-level interactions that made Araxian tech so advanced. The chamber's lighting suddenly flickered, and Sarah felt a discordant ripple through the test matrix. Her eyes snapped open. That's not right, she said, forgetting protocol entirely. Something's wrong with the station's primary power grid. Dr. Ingevera's compound eyes shifted to a warning red. You cannot possibly. The lights went out completely. Emergency illumination cast everything in a pale blue glow as alarms began to sound throughout the station. Multiple system failures detected, announced the station's eye. Primary power grid experiencing cascade failure. Backup systems engaging. The scientists erupted into frantic motion, their crystalline forms casting prismatic shadows as they rushed to their stations. Sarah remained connected to the test matrix, but through it, she could feel the larger disruption spreading through Zenith's systems like a virus. The backup systems won't handle it, she said, her voice urgent. The frequency displacement is too severe. It'll overwhelm the secondary crystals within minutes. Silence, Dr. Ingevera ordered, but Chief Engineer Arxtanos, who had been quietly observing until now, stepped forward. Explain, they commanded. Sarah's fingers danced across the test matrix as she spoke. The power grid is like an instrument that's gone out of tune. Each crystal node is vibrating at the wrong frequency, creating destructive interference patterns. If we don't restore harmonic balance quickly, the entire network will shatter. That's not possible, one of the scientists protested. Our systems are self-correcting. Not against this, Sarah interrupted. This isn't a natural malfunction. Someone's deliberately introduced a harmonic virus into the grid. Look. She pushed her awareness through the test matrix, using it as a window to display the corruption spreading through the station's systems. The observation chamber's walls reflected the visualization, showing waves of discord rippling through Zenith's crystal networks. Chief Engineer Arxtanos' exoskeleton, shifted to a deep indigo, a sign of grave concern. "How long?" "Minutes at most," Sarah replied. "But I can fix it. I can see the pattern. I just need direct access to a primary node." "Absolutely not," Dr. Angsvira interjected. "The human cannot be allowed to." The station shuddered violently, and more alarms joined the cacophony. "Hull integrity compromised in sections 12 through 15, the AI announced. "Atmospheric containment failing." Arxtanos' compound eyes fixed on Sarah. "You believe you can restore stability?" "Yes," she said firmly. "But we have to move now." For 3 heartbeats, no one moved. Then Arxtanos' exoskeleton flashed with command colors. "Take her to Primary Junction 1. Priority clearance." "Chief Engineer, I must protest." Dr. Angsvira began, but Arxtanos cut them off. "Your protest is noted, Doctor. Now evacuate with the others. We may have only one chance at this." As Sarah ran through the corridors with Arxtanos and 2 security officers, she could feel the station's death throes through every crystal surface they passed. The harmonic virus was consuming the power grid faster than she'd feared, turning Zenith's own energy against itself. They reached Primary Junction 1, a massive chamber dominated by a crystalline spire that pulsed with sickly colors. Sarah didn't wait for permission. The moment they were inside, she pressed both hands against the central matrix. The connection nearly overwhelmed her. The station's entire power grid exploded into her awareness, a vast, complex symphony being torn apart by deliberate discord. But now she could see the source code of the virus, its mathematical signature. "Remarkable," Arxtanos said softly, watching as Sarah's hands moved across the crystal surface with impossible speed and precision. "You truly understand what you're doing." "More than understand," Sarah replied through gritted teeth. "I can feel it. Whoever designed this virus knows your technology intimately. They built it to resist normal error correction by mimicking natural crystal growth patterns. But they didn't expect." She didn't finish the sentence. Her consciousness was too deep in the crystal networks, racing against the virus as it tried to adapt to her corrections. Sarah could feel herself touching every node, every junction, reorganizing their quantum states to reject the harmonic corruption. The station groaned, crystal matrices throughout its structure singing with discordant energies. And then, suddenly, resolution. The sickly pulses stabilized, returned to their normal azure glow. The alarms fell silent. "Power grid stabilized," the AI announced, all systems returning to normal parameters. Sarah sagged against the central matrix, exhausted but triumphant. She turned to face Arxtanos, whose exoskeleton was cycling through colors she'd never seen before. "How?" they asked simply. "I don't know," Sarah admitted. "But I think the better question is who would want to destroy Zenith, and why?" The chief engineer's colors settled into a thoughtful pattern. Indeed, and perhaps more importantly, how did they know to design a virus that only a human could detect and stop? Sarah felt a chill that had nothing to do with the junction's temperature. Someone had known she was here, known what she could do. The question was, were they trying to expose her abilities or test them? Security footage from the past 48 hours. Arxtanos announced, their crystalline form refracting the holographic displays that filled their office. "Every access point to our primary systems has been monitored continuously." Sarah leaned forward, studying the streams of data. After preventing Zenith's collapse, she'd been unofficially promoted from maintenance worker to technical consultant, a position that didn't exist in the station's rigid hierarchy but gave her access to the investigation. "There," she said, pointing to a subtle fluctuation in the power readings. 3 hours before the attack, someone accessed Junction 47, where I first discovered my ability." "Impossible," said Security Chief Kexlor, their exoskeleton bristling with skeptical patterns. "That junction was sealed after your incident. Only senior staff have clearance." "Exactly," Sarah replied, her eyes never leaving the display. Whoever did this knew the station's security protocols. They also knew enough about Araxian crystal tech to create a virus that could bypass every safeguard. This wasn't an outside attack. The office fell silent as the implications sank in. Chief Engineer Arxtanos' colors shifted to deep contemplation. An internal threat. One with significant resources, Sarah confirmed. She touched the holographic display, and to everyone's surprise, including her own, it responded to her input just like the crystal matrices did. Data streamed faster, reorganizing itself according to her intuitive understanding. Look at these access patterns. They're using official credentials. But the timing is wrong. No one should be accessing these systems during shift transitions. Security Chief Kexler moved closer, their compound eyes analyzing the data. These credentials, they belong to Research Division, Dr. Anxvira's team. Sarah's heart raced as pieces began falling into place. The same team that's been studying me. That's why they were so opposed to letting me help during the crisis. They needed the attack to succeed. A serious accusation, Arxtanos warned, but their colors suggested they were considering the possibility. Before anyone could respond, the office's crystal walls pulsed with an incoming priority alert. Sarah felt the message through her strange connection to the technology before it was even displayed. Unauthorized access detected in the restricted archives. Now, she said, jumping to her feet, we can catch them in the act. Security Chief Kexler was already moving, signaling their response team. The archives are sealed. They'll be trapped. But Sarah shook her head as they rushed through the corridors. Not if they understand the crystal tech well enough. The security barriers are part of the same network they almost destroyed. They cold. A violent shudder ran through the station, and Sarah stumbled as her connection to the crystal system screamed with feedback. Emergency barriers began slamming down throughout the sector. They're trying to isolate the archive level, she gasped, pressing her hand against a wall panel. Through it, she could feel the chaos spreading through Zenith's systems again. But this time, it was focused, controlled. They're not trying to destroy the station anymore. They're covering their tracks. Can you stop them? Arxtanos demanded. Sarah closed her eyes, diving deep into the crystal network. Yes, but something's strange. The archive systems are responding to them, the same way they respond to me. That should be impossible unless... Her eyes snapped open as realization struck. Unless they're human too. They reached the archive level to find the security barriers in chaos, cycling between active and inactive states as Tura's countermeasures battled the intruder's commands. Through the crystalline walls, she could feel another presence in the network, familiar somehow, like looking in a mirror. There's a maintenance access shaft that connects to the archive chamber, she said. It's not on any official blueprints, but I can feel it through the crystal matrix. They'll try to escape that way. How do you know about a passage that isn't documented? Security Chief Kexler demanded. The same way I know that whoever we're chasing is already downloading restricted files about something called Project Legacy, Sarah replied. The crystals remember. They record everything, not in data, but in patterns. Quantum echoes. We have to hurry. They'd reached the hidden access shaft just as a figure in a maintenance uniform emerged. Sarah felt a jolt of recognition, not of the person, but of the energy signature they were emanating. They were connected to the crystal tech, just like she was. Stop. Security Chief Kexler commanded, their officers training weapons on the figure. The intruder turned, and Sarah found herself staring into eyes that held the same impossible knowledge she discovered in herself. The woman, another human, smiled sadly. They didn't tell you, did you? She said to Sarah. About what they did to us. What they made us become. Step away from the maintenance shaft, Kexler ordered. But Sarah held up her hand. Wait. What do you mean, what they did to us? Who are you? Someone like you. A prototype. But I broke free before they could finish the programming. The woman's eyes flickered to the Araxians. Ask them about Project Legacy. Ask them why humans are really allowed on this station. It's not about cheap labor. It's about evolution. Before anyone could react, the woman pressed her hand against the wall. Sarah felt the surge of power an instant before every crystal in the corridor overloaded with blinding light. When her vision cleared, the intruder was gone. Sarah turned to Arxtanos and Kexler, who were recovering from the flash. What is Project Legacy? The chief engineer's exoskeleton had gone completely still, a sign of extreme distress in Araxians. It's classified at the highest levels. Even I only know it exists. Not good enough, Sarah said, her voice hard. Someone just breached your most secure facility, using abilities exactly like mine, and talked about programming humans. I need answers. Arxtanos and Kexler exchanged looks, their crystals resonating with uncertainty. Finally, the chief engineer spoke. Project Legacy began 50 years ago, when we first discovered that certain humans had potential, genetic markers that could allow them to interface with crystal technology. But the ability had to be awakened, enhanced. Sarah felt cold. Enhanced how? Through controlled exposure to quantum-resonant crystals during early development, usually in mining colonies, where humans would be in constant contact with raw crystal formations. Arxtanos' colors shifted to something like regret. Your maintenance job here was not random assignment, Sarah Chen. You were brought here to be monitored, to see if the enhancements had taken hold. Sarah looked at her hands, hands that could speak to alien technology, that could reshape quantum fields with a thought. Hands that, she now realized, had been engineered for that purpose before she was even born. How many others are there? She asked quietly. We don't know, Arxtanos admitted. Some of the early subjects vanished, like the one we just encountered. But they're out there, and based on today's events, they have their own agenda. Sarah pressed her palm against the crystal wall, feeling the vast network of zenith pulsing around her. She wasn't just a maintenance worker who had stumbled onto a strange ability. She was part of something larger, something that had been hidden for decades. Then we better find out what that agenda is, she said, because I don't think they're done with this station. Or with me. Project Legacy's classified files sprawled across the holographic displays in Arxtanos' office, each one revealing a darker piece of the puzzle Sarah had unwittingly been part of. She absorbed the information through both the conventional displays and her direct connection to Zenith's crystal systems, letting the two streams of data merge in her enhanced consciousness. 50 years of genetic manipulation, she said quietly. Hundreds of human colonies exposed to quantum-resonant crystals without their knowledge. All to create what? Human crystal hybrids. The term we used was quantum-adapted humans, came a new voice. Station Administrator Anxhall stood in the doorway, their crystalline form radiating authority. And you, Sarah Chen, are one of our most successful specimens. Specimens, Sarah repeated, the word tasting bitter. Is that why you let the attack happen? To test your specimen? The administrator's colors shifted in what might have been amusement. The attack was unexpected, but informative. You exceeded all projected capabilities. Nanxhall, Arxtanos interjected, the security breach is precisely why I'm here. The administrator moved into the office, their form casting prismatic shadows. Our rogue element has made contact with others of their kind. We've detected quantum resonance signatures approaching the station. They're coming for her. Sarah felt the truth of it through her connection to the station's sensors. Multiple ships, running dark, their crystal drives pulsing with familiar frequencies. The other subjects, the ones who vanished. Correct. Anxhall's compound eyes fixed on her. And now you face a choice, Sarah Chen. Help us stop them. Prove your loyalty to Zenith, and we'll give you full access to Project Legacy, everything we know about what you are and what you can become. And if I refuse, then you'll be deemed a security risk and appropriate measures will be taken. Sarah looked at Arxtanos, who had been something close to an ally since her abilities emerged. The chief engineer's colors were carefully neutral. No help there. She turned back to the administrator. You're asking me to fight other humans, people like me, who you experimented on without consent. I'm asking you to protect this station and everyone on it. Hull corrected. The rogues have already proven they're willing to risk thousands of lives to achieve their goals, and their ships will be here in less than 6 hours. Sarah closed her eyes, extending her awareness through Zenith's crystal networks. She could feel the approaching vessels more clearly now, 5 of them, their quantum signatures singing with familiar harmonics. And something else. Her eyes snapped open. They're not just coming to get me. There's something on this station they want. Something in the restricted archives, where we caught the intruder. Classified, Hall said sharply. Not anymore. Sarah's fingers danced across the crystal interfaces, following the quantum echoes left by the previous breach. Project Legacy wasn't just about adapting humans to crystal tech. You were working towards something bigger, something you found. The data streams aligned in her mind, and Sarah gasped. The precursor artifact. The one you discovered 50 years ago, that showed you how to modify human genetics in the first place. That's what they're after. The administrator's exoskeleton crackled with alarm patterns. How did you? The crystals remember, Sarah said, echoing her words from before. And I can read them better than you ever could. That's what really scares you, isn't it? Not that your experiments worked, but that they worked too well. Alarms suddenly blared throughout the station. Sarah felt the disruption ripple through the crystal networks, elegant, precise, and far more sophisticated than the previous attack. They're here, she announced, even before the tactical displays confirmed it. They jumped in much closer than you expected. And they're not alone. Space around Zenith warped as more ships emerged from quantum space, sleek vessels of unknown design, their crystal drives resonating with harmonics that made Sarah's enhanced senses sing. Impossible, Hull breathed. Those are precursor ships, Sarah finished. The rogues found more artifacts, more technology, and they learned to use it. She turned to face the administrator. Still want to test my loyalty? Before Hall could respond, every crystal surface in the station pulsed with a transmitted message. Sarah felt the words form in her mind as they appeared on screens and holograms. To the administrators of Zenith Station, you sought to create bridges between human and crystal consciousness. You succeeded beyond your understanding. We are that success. Not your specimens, not your weapons, but the next step in both human and Araxian evolution. The precursors foresaw this merger of organic and crystalline intelligence. Their artifacts were left as guides, not as weapons to be hoarded and dissected. Sarah noticed she was speaking the words aloud along with the transmission, her voice harmonizing with the crystal resonance. The message continued. We offer unity, not destruction. Surrender the artifact. Release your hold over Sarah Chen and others like her. Help us complete what the precursors began, or witness the full potential of what you've created turned against you. The transmission ended, leaving the office in tense silence. Sarah looked at the tactical displays, watching the unknown ships take up strategic positions around Zenith. Their crystal drives pulsed in complex patterns, patterns she somehow knew could tear the station apart at a quantum level. Well, she said to Administrator Hall, it seems your test just got a lot more complicated. Time seemed to crystallize in Zenith's command center as Sarah stood between two futures. On the main display, the precursor ships hung in space like frozen lightning, their quantum drives singing songs she could almost understand. Behind her, Administrator Hall and a dozen Araxian officers waited for her decision. They're charging weapons, Security Chief Kexler announced, their crystalline form reflecting the tension in the room. No, Sarah said softly. They're charging something else. She pressed her hand against the central crystal matrix, letting her consciousness expand through the station's systems until she could feel the complex energy patterns weaving between the mysterious ships. It's a quantum field. They're not here to destroy Zenith. They're here to wake it up. Explain, Arxtanos demanded. Your station, Sarah said, her eyes still closed as she read the quantum frequencies. It's not just built with crystal tech. The whole structure, its precursor architecture, isn't it? You built Zenith around their ruins. Administrator Anxhal's colors shifted to warning patterns. That information is restricted. Not to us, said a new voice. The woman from the archive breach stepped out of a quantum distortion that hadn't existed a moment before, her form flickering with crystalline energy. We are Janet Hayes, Test Subject 0 of Project Legacy, and we are here to complete the convergence. Security officers raised their weapons, but Sarah felt the quantum field expand through the station's crystal networks. Every piece of technology stopped responding to Araxian commands. The precursors weren't just an advanced alien race, Janet continued. They were a synthesis of organic and crystalline intelligence. Their artifacts weren't meant to be studied. They were meant to guide other species toward the same evolution. Humanity's neural patterns made us uniquely compatible with their technology. That's what you discovered 50 years ago. And what you tried to control, came another voice as more figures emerged from quantum space. Humans of various ages, all resonating with the same crystalline energy Sarah felt in herself. But you couldn't contain what you started. Sarah looked at the Araxian leaders, seeing the truth in their shifting colors. You found precursor ruins, used their knowledge to modify human genetics, but you never understood the end goal. You thought you were creating better interface tools for your technology. We were protecting our technological advantage, Anxhal insisted. If humans could naturally interface with crystal systems, then artificial barriers between our species would become meaningless. Janet finished. The precursors left their legacy for all sentient races, not just the ones who found it first. The quantum field pulsed stronger, and Sarah felt Zenith's hidden structures awakening. Beneath layers of Araxian construction, ancient crystal matrices sparked to life, recognizing the presence of evolved consciousness. Make your choice, Sarah Chen, Janet said. Help us complete the convergence, or remain a specimen in their experiments. Sarah turned to Arxtanos, who had shown her more understanding than most. You feel it too, don't you? Through your crystalline biology. The precursors weren't trying to elevate one species over others. They were showing us how to evolve together. The chief engineer's colors rippled with complex emotions. The resonance. I've never felt anything like it. Because you were never supposed to face it alone. Sarah stepped into the center of the command room, letting her consciousness fully merge with the quantum field. The precursors left their technology as a bridge, not a barrier. Humanity's gift isn't that we can interface with crystal systems, it's that we can help others do the same. She reached out with both her hands and her mind, connecting the quantum field to Zenith's crystal networks in a way the Araxians had never imagined possible. The station hummed with new frequencies as ancient systems activated, recognizing the presence of evolved consciousness, both human and Araxian. Feel it, she told the stunned officers. Your crystalline biology is already compatible. You just needed someone to show you how to make the connection. One by one, the Araxians' colors shifted as they experienced direct neural connection with their technology for the first time. Sarah felt their consciousness joining the quantum field, adding new harmonics to the crystalline symphony. Administrator Anxhal staggered, their exoskeleton refracting impossible colors. We never knew. Because you were too focused on control, Janet said, but her tone was gentle now. The precursors understood that true evolution can't be contained or directed. It has to be chosen, again and again, by individuals and species willing to grow beyond their limitations. Sarah looked at the assembled humans and Araxians, feeling the quantum field strengthening as more minds joined the convergence. Through the station's sensors, she could see the precursor ships generating complex patterns in space-time itself. They're creating a quantum gateway, she realized, showing us the path to other precursor sites, other species approaching the same evolutionary threshold. And now you understand your real purpose, Janet said. Not just to bridge human and crystal consciousness, but to help guide others through their own evolution. The precursors weren't gods or conquerors. They were teachers. And now, so are we. Administrator Anxhall stepped forward, their colors showing a mix of humility and awe. We were wrong to try to control this process. The question is, can we still be part of it? Sarah felt the quantum field pulse with acceptance. The precursors believed in unity through diversity. Every species brings its own unique perspective to the convergence. She smiled. Even ones that started out thinking they could control evolution itself. The command center filled with crystalline light as human and Araxian consciousness merged with precursor systems. Sarah felt possibilities expanding in all directions. New technologies, new ways of thinking, new forms of existence that neither species had imagined alone. Zenith Station, once a symbol of Araxian superiority, was transforming into exactly what its name suggested, a high point from which two species could reach together towards something greater than themselves. The evolution that Project Legacy had tried to control was finally proceeding as the precursors had intended, not through force or manipulation, but through choice, cooperation, and the simple human gift of showing others how to see beyond their own limitations. Sarah Chen, once a simple maintenance worker, now stood at the threshold of a new age. She was no longer just a test subject, or even a bridge between species. She was a teacher, a guide, and a living example of what humanity had always done best, taking the impossible and making it inevitable.